Hello, hello. If you are interested in creating more content, especially humorous content, and especially on TikTok, you're in for a real treat with my special guest today. For those of you that are new to my channel, I am Kate Bowman. I share ideas and strategies, tips to help you live a more creative and fulfilling life. I started live streaming my podcast on here as well. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I invite you to do so to check out some of my other videos. And if you want to subscribe to the podcast and just hear more conversations about creativity and what people are doing to just put more creative work out into the world, things that they'd love to do just for the joy of it, just for the fun of it, not to get paid, not to be rich and famous, just because it makes them laugh, just because they have fun. And that is exactly what my guest does. I am so excited. He is one of my very favorite TikTokers. I'm not really big on TikTok, but I've discovered some really fun creators, and Stu Jeffrey is one of those people. He started his creating content on TikTok during the first COVID-19 lockdown. We don't want to remember that, but that's when he started. He cannot dance. He actually has zero rhythm, and he does most of his singing in the shower, but he loves connecting with people through humor, and he absolutely makes me laugh. So I'm so excited to introduce you to Stu. Stu, hello.
Hello. How are you?
First of all, that hello is like forever in my mind because that's how you start off so many of your TikToks.
Oh, I know. And
Hello.
it happened by accident. Like I couldn't figure out a way of starting a video because it's awkward talking to yourself. Like so I'm like, hello. And then I just didn't continue. But like oftentimes like I would try and start videos and be like, I'm gonna tell a story, and then you just don't know where to start. So you're like one time I did this thing, it was really funny, and then you get lost in the description.
Oh my God. Well, you're so endearing. Like
Oh,
that is when when I get your hello, I just know that I'm gonna laugh because not only do you say hello, but you crack yourself up.
I do. I do. And like people think I'm like it's put on. When I first started, people thought it was put on, but I ask people to like go tell a story to themselves in the mirror and see if they can keep a straight face because you look so ridiculous as you're trying to remember the details, tell the story in a coherent way. And then you get stuck on how you look and you're like, why do I do that with my lip? What is that? Like, why does my nose look that way? My eyebrows always like that. And then you're like suddenly laughing hysterically because you're so now focused on like 1 inch of your face, being like, is that always there? Staring at yourself in the mirror. So I'm like hysterical. But like I think people honestly, for me at least, I just think if you can't laugh at yourself, then you shouldn't be on the internet because people are so specifically mean, but also they're specific in their praise and also their criticism. So if you can't laugh at yourself and be like, yeah, I do see that thing with my face. Thank you for noticing as well. You're right.
So what inspired you to start first of all, what inspired you to start doing videos on TikTok, and what was your very first video?
It's such a sad story. So I went into lockdown and like we all had this like wonderful belief that we're like, we'll see each other in 2 weeks. Bye. And then like came home and I was like, I'm gonna be so economical. I'm gonna buy a box of wine. It's gonna last me 2 weeks. I'm gonna get all of this reading done. It's gonna be great. And I work in travel, so there was like just chaos before, and then it was just like this dead calm as everything kind of like halt to a grinding halt. So I downloaded The Sims for the first time in my life because it was on sale. Maxis was like, everyone should sign up for this. It's $5. Create your perfect life in the pandemic. And I was like, what an idea. So I did this. I got really emotionally invested in my Sims, like too much that I needed to like pull back. But one night I had more wine than I should have. And I didn't realize that your Sims continue living, like, even if you're not controlling them. Anyway, my children got
Oh.
taken away by CPS. My husband died of a broken heart. Then I died, and then my house froze. And I was like
What?
sobbing. And like drunk and sobbing at midnight is not a good look on anyone. So I like VM'd my friend, my best friend in the world, and I was like, I don't everyone is dead. And then she like didn't message me back that one night. And like the next day she was like, hey, I don't think The Sims is your pandemic journey. I think you have to stop. Let's pull back, let's uninstall, let's find a new path. What else do you want to do? So I had like heard of TikTok. I downloaded it. I was so amazed by all of these amazing people that were just so funny and so genuine and so creative that I was like, maybe I could do a video too. So my first video ever was a lip sync, and it was to basically this girl being like, guess who missed like 14 missed calls and 6 texts from their ex. And then she was like, my ex. Right, please call me back. Like, I miss you. I think we can work things out. And it was like, I did it. And I was like, no one's going to see this. Like, no one's going to see it. Like, it's just something fun to do. No one did see it. Like 20 people saw it. And I was like, am I famous? 20 people? What? And then like one like, and I was like, this is easy. And then like as it kind of gradually, like people in my life started like getting videos like peppered into their feeds, and they started calling being like, are you good? Like, are you okay?
Oh
Like,
my God.
I know you live alone with your dog, but are you like, girl, you fine? Are you good? Do you want to call? So it's like, so yeah, that's kind of, it kind of shut out from there. And then the first viral video that I had, it was my friend had sent me a video of some guy going into like a natural water slide under a waterfall, and like not coming up for like a minute. And he was like, just watch this, don't watch it like as a blind duet. And I was like, what's a blind duet? And he was like, when you don't watch the first and you just watch your reaction. So I did it, and I was like, cool, I posted it. I went to bed, woke up, and there was like 50,000 views, and I was like, what is happening?
Oh
Like,
my
it
gosh.
was so bizarre to me, because I was like, this is just the stuff that I would say to anyone. Like, this is not different or new. Like, my friends would just get this running diatribe if I was to see this video in their presence. So like, I just shared it on a video, and I was like, I'll try it again. It was a kind of trial and error of like what I
Oh
like
my
to do.
gosh. That's so interesting. So why do you think, like, what do you feel are people attracted to most when it comes to content creation? What do you feel like people are actually excited to? I guess this is a crazy question, because it's like
Yeah.
everybody is so different, right? But it's so fascinating to me, like what pops off and what doesn't.
I think honestly, from what I've seen, it's like people who kind of like tap into something that others can relate to as well. So you had kind of like Katie Florence, who had like the circle, or the council, where it's like her brain or heart, her lady bits, and then her like herself all having a conversation, and people were like, this is super funny. You would call me Chris, but I think honestly, like what draws people to content creation is the fact that I don't think anyone prior to the pandemic, you're not really pushed into creativity. It's like you're pushed into a very black and white job. You can either like choose to be creative and really like push through everyone always being like, what's your backup plan? What's the backup plan for that? Like, I was a writer when I first started out of university, and people would be like, but what's your backup plan when that fails? And like at the time you're like, but what if it doesn't fail? Like, that's what I want to do. And they were like, but like, what about living? Like, do you want to live? And you're like, I do, but I want to live for like on the money that I make from writing. And people are like, that's cute, that's adorable, get a real job. Do writing on the side. So I think prior to the pandemic, like what the pandemic kind of did was like sweep all of this time suck, all of this work, all of this stuff off our plates collectively as a kind of global society. And people were able to like be like, well, maybe I want to try something new. Like, no one's going to see it. Like, it's in the privacy of my own home. There's a built-in comfort and security with that. You're kind of insulated because you're by yourself. And you can do whatever you want. And if it doesn't work out, you can delete it. no harm, no foul. But I think it offered people the ability to just be like, I'm gonna try it out. Like, why not? Like, what's I there have all this time now. People who were privileged enough to be able to be home for the pandemic, but like, um, yeah, I think it was amazing to see kind of the collective creativity that kind of like was pulled out of people by simple boredom. Like,
Yeah.
I have the time now to be creative. Let's do it. And like to some people who didn't have that, but like it was interesting.
I really love that perspective of it kind of pushed people to be creative. There's so many I've read a number of different authors that talk about boredom, how in our world today, we're not there's no time to be bored because
Right.
we are constantly moving. So you're right, when you're in the pandemic and you actually have time to maybe sit around and be a little bit bored, to push into kind of what normally people wouldn't have ventured into, like creating videos. I like that perspective on that creativity because everyone is creative.
Yeah.
Everybody, but most people don't think they're creative. So I feel like a lot of people have discovered that they are creative when it comes to creating TikToks, the way that they approach it, the way they approach videos, even as just being themselves, like you said,
Yeah.
with the with I mean, I don't I'm not big into TikTok, so I don't know all the language, but I know I'm like, oh, this is a when you do your what do you call them? A
The blind
reaction.
duets.
Yeah, the blind duet. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, those crack me up from people that are just watching a video for the first time." But that's not new. People on YouTube do that.
Yeah, they do. And it's I think what's interesting is that I think people have been told for so long this kind of lie that you only can be creative in certain avenues, that creativity looks a certain way, and they have these like pillars and like they can look at. They have these archetypes. You're like you could be an actress, a writer, a playwright, um, someone who does like theater, like so on and so forth. But I don't think people can kind of assign that label of creativity so easily to like themselves. You are a creative person. Everyone has a creative outlet. Everyone has a perspective. No one is the same as you. So all of your life stories, all of your experiences kind of create the person that you are, and that's boring to you but new and different to other people.
Mm,
So like yeah, you can be funny. You maybe have a hilarious perspective. Maybe you're retelling a story that happened during your day. Maybe you're sharing your relationship or your kid or any of these things, and you'll be completely different from anybody else. People may not like to watch it, but there are people in this world who will be like who will want to watch it. And I think it's just kind of being able to give yourself the space and the the empathy and the grace to just like try. Try it. If you don't like it,
yeah.
you don't like it. But like at least you can say that you did something. You tried something new and different.
Yeah. So I love that this isn't what you do for a living. I think that is one I think so many people are now when people I mean, you have almost I mean, you're going to have 1,000,000 followers soon. You have like over
Insane.
815,000 followers. Like that's a lot.
It's crazy.
So I think when people see that you have that many followers, I think a lot of people just assume like, oh, this is what Stu does for a living, but this isn't what you do for a living. You have a job, you go to a job. You
Yeah.
now after pandemic, you went back to your job. Why are you still? Why is it still important for you to explore your creativity and do these videos?
That's a really good question. Someone asked me that recently. One of my friends asked me that. And my answer to them was probably a lot less eloquent than I'm gonna try and be now. I think it was more of like, because I want to. No, I think it's honestly because I'm I think I fell into sort of the corporate trap where I started my career as a writer. I was very creative. I like thought of myself as a creative, someone that couldn't do something different. And I think that along the way in the early 20s, like graduating university in a recession, and then kind of like doing a creative outlet, when so many places like papers and magazines and webzines were shuttering, that I assumed it wasn't something that I could make money off of, that I was struggling for a couple of years. So I was like, you know what, honestly, I'm just going to try out being a temporary executive assistant, and you thrive because you sort of are able to figure out that way of operating, and then you sort of like package your creativity, you package that thing that you used to do, the imagination, you kind of funnel it into very structured ways, like how do I solve this like corporate problem, how do I make this a really fun meeting, but you don't sit and think like, is this filling up my cup, is this the creativity that makes me feel good and satiated. So for a long time prior to the pandemic, I was like, I would love to sit down and do writing again, or have the join a theater group or all these things. And I'm a very shy human being, like in person, which I know people don't always understand, but um, it's sort of a really great place when you come back to a corporate job, or any job, that you have to keep some space for you. And I've been very deliberate in that. I've been like, this is my thing. This is
Mhm.
something that I'm unwilling to give up. Let's see how far it goes. Like, as long as I'm having fun with it, it's filling me up, I'm good.
I love that answer so much.
Very long-winded.
No, I think it's so relatable because people I feel like I've seen it even in some content creators that I know that they did get really into it, and now that they've gotten, quote unquote back to normal, they've lost that piece of them.
Yeah.
And it's so fulfilling to explore your creativity, whatever that looks like. It's, photography, writing, whatever it is. I'm so curious about your writing career. What did you write about?
I So I was more of like a freelance writer. So I wrote about like, I wrote for certain corporations. I like reviewed some of their copywriting. Um, I did some freelance work for personal essays. I wrote about budgeting for millennials. I worked for like a now defunct blog about like teaching millennials how to like budget and like live their lives, which was a lie because like no one could budget on the amount of money they were like. The editors were very like uh, boomers who are like, this is what we want millennials to like follow the tenets of like saving money and living like not beyond their means. Write about this and like make it fun and punchy. And you're like writing it being like how to go out for a night with $20. And you're like, you can, but you're like being like, eat at home with what food? Like, what food are you eating at home? You can't afford it. They're like uh walk. I'm like, yeah, walk to downtown Toronto. That makes lots of sense. Like just a cool 2-hour walk. Get to the clubs to start dancing, exhausted and sweaty
Oh
and
my
starving.
gosh.
So like it's thankfully it didn't last that long. But then I did this kind of like personal essay series where I went on 30 dates in 30 days, and like that was something that was like the worst best experience of my life.
Oh my
um
gosh.
because and I'm petty, so basically someone accused me of having like really high standards after I went through a breakup, and they were like, the reason you're so sad 3 days after the breakup was because your standards are so high. If you lowered your standards, you wouldn't be miserable and alone. I was like, it's been 3 whole days since I broke up with this person, friend. Do you think I could have a week? And they're like, no, if you don't shape up, you're not going to come to my wedding. But I haven't planned. I haven't asked to. I have a boyfriend, but you won't be invited. So I went home with all of my pettiness and was like signed up for 3 dating websites and was like, well, I'm going to go on a date every day for 30 days. And I'm not going to make any, the rules are out. No, there's nothing. There's no standard. If you're alive and ask me on a date,
You went out with them.
yeah. The only
Oh
thing I
my
wouldn't do
gosh.
is like I'd put myself in a dangerous situation, but I couldn't. My rule was that I was not going to plan the date because I'm a very organized type A person. So like I will plan something. Like if the person doesn't immediately plan something, I'm like, we could do this at this time
Oh
at this
my
place,
gosh.
and you can get there this way.
Oh my gosh. That is so funny.
Yeah, I'm an insane person.
No, no, that's just very type A. I
Yeah,
will do the same thing, and it's kind of for some people, they're like, "Wait, hold on,
yeah.
calm down."
They're like, "What? You actually wanna follow through in the plans that we made? What? Stop." Of course, like,
Oh my
now as
gosh.
I'm in my 30s, I'm like, if anybody cancels a plan, I'm like, "Oh, no. Now I have to stay home and do nothing."
It's so
Rat.
bad. It's so bad. Oh my gosh. So, Stu, your like dream scenario, like what would you do? What's like your dream role? Is it creating content? Is it writing? Like what would that look like?
I honestly like, oh god, good question. Um, I think if you were to ask me a couple of years ago, I would say, like, put me in a movie. Like, put me in a movie,
Oh, please,
do it, I
please
would
put
love
Stu
it.
in a movie.
Um, I as a kid, I wanted to be an actor, but then I think, like, now, I don't know, I think that sort of is appealing to me on, like, the periphery of, like, a dream that I have, but I think writing would be something that I wanted to do. Like, if I could not be as problematic as Lena Dunham, I would want her kind of, like, career trajectory where she writes and
Mm.
acts in her own TV show, and then maybe, like, I don't write a memoir where I talk about a lot of really problematic things. Maybe I don't do that stage. Um,
So do you write? I know, do you write your TikToks? Like, do you write scripts?
yeah, I usually come in with an idea, but, I'll write it out. It never is the thing I write, though. It becomes something very different. The blind duets are just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But the actual, like, sit down bestie chats, as I call them, those are, like, planned out somewhat. I have a framework of what I wanna talk about, and then it usually goes to shit. Like, I'll remember something and be like, "Oh, yeah, this thing also happened, and here it is completely, like, outside of the timeline of the story."
Oh my gosh.
Follow along if you can, and people oftentimes in the comment section, if you read it, will be like, "This story ended in a very different place it started in." Yeah.
And that is why we love you. So I discovered you from, I think that one of the first TikToks I saw of you, which I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes," was when you were pretending you were in a Hallmark movie.
Oh my god, I love
It
those
was one
things.
of those with you had a wig on, and
A
it
big
was
wig on. That poor wig, she's been through
oh
so
my
much.
god. I remember I found that I sent it to my sister. I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And then I saw another one. I'm like, "I'm obsessed with this guy. Like he is so funny." Oh my
I
gosh, because she loves watching all of those movies. Like whenever I go to her house, she always like has one on, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna love this." She's like, "Oh my god, this guy is hilarious."
it's just like those movies are so my mother hates those movies, like, she hates
They're
them.
ridiculous.
But my father watches every single one of them. And, like, if we go home for the holidays, when we spend, like, a week with our parents, it's, like, very intense family time, and then we all leave the moment that we wanna murder one of us. So, like,
Oh my
literally, like,
gosh.
last year, we were, like, gonna stay an extra day, and the morning of, my sister and I, like, looked across the island at each other, and we were like, "Get out of here. You have to get out of here. Get in the car. Get in the car." Like, running outside. My mother is, like, packing bags of, like, food from her cupboards, being like, "Take this." And I was like, "I have a job. I have food at my place. I don't want this." And she was like, "No, please. Here's this half-eaten box of crackers. Take it home with you." She was like, "Do you like cheese?" And I was like, "I need out of here." I'm, like, in the car with the window closed, and she's, like, tapping the glass, and I'm like, "Drive!"
Get
Um,
out.
I'm like,
Oh
"Get
my
out of
gosh.
here." But, so when we come home, my dad is watching these movies and he will shush us. Like if we're in the other room talking too loudly, he's like, "Shh, I'm gonna miss something." I don't like, guys, take it downstairs. I can't hear the movie. By the way, it's blaring, so like all you can hear is the dialogue. And my sister and my mother are just like rolling their eyes. I'm a little bit, a little bit more accepting of it. Although I will, he gets mad because I usually will do my bit along with it. I'm like,
Oh my
"In a my
gosh.
whole apartment, abandon all my worldly possessions? Of course. Of course. I love it. What do you do for work? You don't have a job? Oh my God, dream. Like, it's just like, and he gets so mad at me. He's like, stop it. Stop it.
No, it's so funny. It's like right when those movies start, you're like, can I know I could be in this movie and I don't even know the script. It's ridiculous.
But it's also too like those movies are absurd for the sheer fact that like it's always the woman who like goes to small town
Yeah.
America and this like picturesque snow globe town, and then she at some point, either it's something in the water, something in the food that she's eating, in the air, she's like, you know what, actually I don't need to work. I don't need to work. I don't need friends. I don't need anything. I'm going to abandon like it all. Do I have a
Yeah.
child? Maybe. Who cares? They're in New York. Do I have a pet? Maybe she's dead now. This is my story. Now I live in a Christmas tree farm with this guy I just met a day ago, and he's
And
the
now
love of
we're
my life.
engaged.
And now we're married, and now I have a baby. And you're like, how are you pregnant? And she's like, the magic of Christmas.
Oh my gosh. So funny. Those crack me up.
Yeah,
Okay, can we get back to your dream? Because I
yeah.
feel like I feel like this is, first of all, you are so hilarious. You need to be a writer. Like you
Oh,
need to like write, even if you just write more just for the sake of it, just for the fun of it. But you know what I'm thinking of is, well, first of all, you have almost 1 million followers.
that's
We're
insane.
all invested. We're like, it is. It's insane. But we are invested in you because it's you. Like you do, yes, you do some of the ones like we were just talking about, and you do some just like voiceover ones, but your stories are yours and they are so hilarious. And I almost feel like it's reminding me of, who's that guy that from The Office that wrote, BJ Novak.
Oh
You know
yeah.
how he wrote that book, but it's like just like a bunch of stories. Or oh my gosh, David Sedaris.
Oh, Sedaris. I love him.
Oh my gosh, his book. Yeah, I have The Best of Me book right over there. His, like, they're all just stories. Like, Stu, you could write a book of just like these stories. And even if you only talked about it on your TikTok, people would buy it.
That's what I've asked. I've like, do you guys want to like buy these stories or like in like
Yeah.
write it? And they were like, do a podcast instead. And I was like, okay, so just me just speaking the words.
So instead of like seeing my face, I got it.
Yeah, I got it. And they were like, make a video. And I was like, okay, so guys, I've asked a different question.
No, I'm
Do you
asking
want to read it?
you. But here's the thing. Of those million, first of all, here's the thing. Of all of those people, some people would absolutely read it. Some people wouldn't, but the people that wouldn't, they would still
Yeah.
buy it because they want to support you.
That's so nice. It's crazy to me because I think people like, I think also too, like, other than like, these like very specific times where like people have an interest in listening to me talk, like my life hasn't changed all that much. Like, so like when people are like they want to buy things from you, I'm like, what? Why? Why would they want that? It's
People
insane
love
to me.
buying things. We're
Yeah.
crazy. That's it. We're like, oh, Stu has something cool. I'll buy it. Like, look at all these people that have all this merch. I'm
Oh, I
like,
know.
oh my gosh, it's so funny.
And I buy it too. Like I'm like, yeah, I love it.
And why do you buy it? Why do you buy their merch?
I like the person. That's why I buy it.
Correct. That's exactly why you buy it.
Yeah.
So we like you and we would support you and buy the book. So if writing is really a passion of yours, in addition to doing your fun TikToks, what fun would that be to take that skill and just start writing, not a memoir. I mean, write however you want to write it. But like, as I'm talking to you, those are the two people that I thought of, was that BJ Novak, because it was such a crazy book. It was just like these random stories. Like it wasn't like each chapter, some of them were like a few pages, some were like a couple of sentences. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is interesting, but hilarious.
They're hilarious. That's the thing. I think that most people don't realize that the stories that you have in your life are funny to other people and just like normal to you.
Well,
like,
it's
you
the
normalize them.
delivery. It's
Yeah.
the delivery.
It's a
You have
delivery.
to deliver it the right way, and you deliver it the right way. And so I can imagine if you have a passion for writing and you started your career in writing, you are a good writer. And
Hopefully.
oh my gosh, I'm going to
Hopefully.
challenge you to start writing, Stu.
Oh my God. I'll accept it. I'll accept it. I can't even speak. I'll accept it. I'll accept your challenge. But yeah, no, I'll do it. I do want to get back into it, and I have been like playing around with a couple of things. I almost had a heart attack yesterday because I plugged in my external hard drive to my computer, and I was like, all of my writing for the last 12 years is on this hard drive. It's surely fine. And then my computer was like, I don't know what that is. What is that? And I was
Oh
like, no,
no.
it's fine. And like, when you have like the tears in the corner of your eye, and you're like, it's everything is great. So I called like called like Microsoft support. Poor man named Michael. Shout out to Michael. Um, just legitimately like walked me like back off a ledge as I was like, it's totally fine. It's gone forever. It doesn't even matter. 12 years of writing. It's okay. And he was like, we're going to fix it. And I was like, no, okay, it's fine though. You'll have to start fresh. At the end of it, he was like, you just need to do these like very minor things. And I was like, thank God. It's like, thank God no one freaked out, Michael. Oof. Like, you must have so many people calling stressed out. Thank God I was so chill. Like, thank God this is a highlight of your day. And he's like, we've been on the phone for 45 minutes for a 3-minute problem. Like,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I was like, but those are the things that I would tell because like, first of all, I'm like, Stuart, you're being ridiculous. And second of all, like in retrospect,
Yeah.
I'm being ridiculous. In the moment, I'm totally justified in the fact that my world is ending. Everything's collapsing. How will I go on?
Yes.
And then at the end, I'm like, whatever. Not even a real problem. Like, why are you
It would have
freaking
been
out?
fine. It would have been fine either way.
The
I
whole
wouldn't have
time
cared.
it's fine. I wouldn't have even cared. Why am I crying still? It's nothing. It's allergy. What?
Oh my gosh. Do you have any rituals or like when it comes to writing, do you have any kind of rituals to just kind of help you get into like a creative space?
Oh my God. Okay, so you're gonna think I'm a crazy person, and like I accept it already. Like I get it. So I have playlists. I create playlists for like different kind of writing. Like I'll like happy stories, like sad stories. Like if I'm writing like a short story for somebody for like years ago, I would have like short like playlist for that too. But I will act out the dialogue. Like if like I will be in my kitchen like washing dishes and suddenly like I'm a housewife whose husband is cheated on her and I'm having a full conversation with this imaginary man. And I am just crying, like washing dishes, using it in my and then I'm like, okay, I'll write that down. And then I will like legitimately just like make short form notes of like what I said that I liked. And then I'll like workshop it later. But like I had my ex-boyfriends, all of them have like walked in on me and doing this, being like, are you on the phone?
Stop it.
And I'm like, yes. Hi, mom. Like literally like wet, soapy dishwater hands. And I'm just like, grab a phone and I'm like, bye.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that is hilarious.
It's so awkward. It's like perhaps, or I'll like say things out loud, or I'll like talk in the shower. I find talking out loud helps me like frame what I want to say, and then I'll like write it down later on as I'm comfortable with it. But
Mm.
I think if I were to sit down and start writing, like just like certain like Angela Lansbury, for example, like Jessica Fletcher for Murder She Wrote, just sat down every single day and wrote a new novel, and like that's crazy. And I used to
Yeah.
think that was what writing was like. I used to be like, as a kid, I was like, well, it's so easy. You just sit down at a typewriter and you're like, do, 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 do. You're done. You're finished. You've written 300 novels a year and you're like, you're a successful author. I wrote down, I was like, so I went to write one in my early 20s. I'm like, I'm going to write a book. All I did was cry for
Oh my gosh.
for like 2 straight months because that cursor is bullying you. It just flashes at you. And you're like, I have no ideas. I have no thoughts. I'm not creative. I don't know what to say. But I'm going to write this novel. I'm going to write it. No.
That okay, so I love that you said that because writing is what I mean, look, the creative process is a challenge, right? Like if you're going to do anything creative, you have to it's all about process and it's all about you have to sit down and do the work. And I'm obsessed, so I love comedians and I love cuz I think talk about like creative process. I think they're like fascinating because they have to like get up on stage and
I could never do that.
Oh my gosh, it's like no thank you, but I love listening to them and I love their stories and I just love how you mean they always talk about how you have to show up and you do the work. Same
Yeah.
thing with writers. So Stephen King, he wrote his book on writing and he talks all about how you just have to keep showing up. You just have to keep showing up. And that's basically every book that I've read about writing. It says the same thing. Like you
Right.
have to show up and do the work. Like Anne Lamott, who wrote Bird by Bird, same thing. Show up and do the work. And that's the thing about writing that I feel like you have to get comfortable with sucking. You have to get comfortable with like writing stuff that is so terrible and then being okay with stepping away from it. And I used to have that thought too because I wrote a book and I'm in the copy edit phase.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. But like, oh my gosh, it's torturous. Like sometimes to sit down and to write. And sometimes you sit down, I'm like, I'm amazing. And I just like wrote this incredible best-selling book. And then I sit down the next day and I'm like, who wrote this? This sucks. This doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. You're like, oh my God, I love that you're describing it to a T so perfectly that you like write this like paragraph, these like 4 pages, and you're like, am I amazing? And then the next, I know, am I a genius? And then the next day you sit down, you read it, and you're like, I am trash. I should quit writing. I should break my computer. I should apologize to all of my friends and family for leading them astray because I cannot construct a single sentence. I am Cletus, the slack-jawed yokel. I hate this. And then you sit there and you're like, delete, 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 delete. Start again. And then at the end of it, at the end of that day, it feels like you've hollowed yourself out and you have 4 words.
Yes. Well, that's the other thing is like you write all of these words and then you realize like, oh, so I just wrote 40,000 words that really could have been said in 10, 15,000. Awesome. Like, amazing. Great.
You're like, great. And then when you add another person on top of it, or like an editor or anything, or a friend who's reading your work if you're like younger, or just doing a gut check, people are like, they're like, oh, it's good. And you're like, is it good? And they're like, yeah, it's. If it were me though, I would change a couple of things. Or you have an editor who's like, this sucks. You're like, and you just hand it back to you like previous to like technology. Like I used to get things handed back to me like scratched red, and they'd be like, try again. And you're like, try what again? Like, there's no feedback here.
Do you have any notes for me that I can do?
Exactly. Like, try again? With what? My personal experience? Like, what do you want? And then you're just sitting there being like, but of course, like, we're also conditioned to be polite. So you're like, 100%. Yep. No, I see everything you're saying. There's not a single note in this paper, but I know what you're thinking. And I'm going to take all of that. I'm going to change it. When you go back to your desk and you're like, I have no idea.
No, you need the feedback. This is why the first time I ever had an editor, and she was so sweet because she's like, don't be upset when I send this to you. And it was just like full of red ink all over. And I was like, thank you so much, because I didn't know how to fix it. Right. I needed somebody to tell me. Now, of course, I was upset because I was like, wow, I suck. Like, none of this was good. But also, at least now I know kind of how to fix it. And I think that that's the same true even with like videos. I mean, when you are creating your TikToks, I'm sure you're obviously seeing feedback of like what people like, what people respond to, what they don't respond to. Has there been, do you have like a favorite video that like is your favorite, even if it didn't like quote unquote do well, that it's just your favorite?
I have 2. One did well. So that the Hallmark stories, like the Lifetime movie ones, the first one I did, it was done in 15 minutes. And I literally was because I was watching a holiday movie alone in my apartment. And I was like, this is so stupid. And in my head, I was like, if I was this person's best friend, I would literally be like, you're nuts. You are out of control. Like, what is happening? So I just filmed it and I like put the wig on, which looks insane. Like the wig, it fit the character well, but like this like haggard millennial woman just like at home with wine getting this phone call from her friend being like, I'm married. And I just went back and forth with myself. And then I was like, that was like everything I wanted to say to the character in the movie. And I posted it and it like was crazy. Like everyone just responded so well to it. Another one that I did was The Devil Wears Prada, where I did this same kind of thing. Like, what would happen if like Annie Sachs was to call her friend in New York City and talk about throwing her phone in a fountain, quitting her job in Paris? Because you watch that movie as an older person, as a early 20 something, a teenager, you're like, yes, show it. Like, quit your job. You did amazing. And then, like, in your 30s or late 20s, you're like, but how are you going to get home? How are you going to call anybody? Because your phone's in a fountain. Like, how are you going to afford to live? Like, show your work. Like, it's all of these things. Like, they were like, your friends are terrible people. Like, like it's all of these questions, but it's like I have them. So like when I make those videos, it's usually just me having questions for the main character of a movie and being like, I'm just gonna ask them. Like I'm gonna
Oh
do it. And I
my
always end up
gosh.
choosing that same effing wig that looks like it's been through war. And I put it on my head and it works for that character. And I'm like, here we are. She's crazy.
Oh my gosh. They are so funny. So funny. And I love your stories. Oh my gosh, Stu, I feel like I could talk to you all day. You are so fun.
Thank you.
I
I
will
enjoy this.
I will be the first one to buy your book
Oh yay. Thank you.
when
I will
so
definitely write it.
yeah, you So, are you well, are do you have anything planned for when you hit 1 million followers on TikTok? Are you going to celebrate?
I like it's such a large like it's just insane. And I don't know how I will feel, but I want to do something because I want to
Yeah.
thank the people that follow me because like it's so crazy to me that like you can like kind of open your phone, open the camera and connect with people and people respond in like the most beautiful ways. Some feedback is not welcomed, but like there's are comment filters for those. Um but I want to thank anybody who follows me because like it's absolutely insane the love that I've received and the positive feedback. Maybe I'll get a gluten-free cake and just celebrate. That sounds so sad. I'm like, I will celebrate alone in my apartment with a whole cake. That sounds like a dream, but also like it sounds like the hashtag sad girl like
Oh my
evenings.
gosh.
But I hope like I think I might go out with my friends and just like celebrate. My friends are so supportive over it, and they find it so funny because I am a very shy person. So they're like, you barely go out in the world and talk to anyone, but you have all of these people online like thinking that you're Mr. Social. I was like, it's a lie.
It's a lie. Well, you talk
Ours.
about it. It is. Oh my gosh, that is so funny. So no like romantic love interests have like slid into your DMs?
Oh, I've had no.
Cuz
I've
you
had
see like all these people that are like hooking up on TikTok like I can't like from all over the country they're just like meeting up and
I know. It's crazy. It's one of those things where I I wish I was the kind of person who would have that sort of like blind faith, like jump in and just do it. But like I've had people who are like, "Hey, like we should like connect. Like I think you're very attractive." And I'm like, "Oh my god, you're a psychopath. You want to kill me?"
oh my god.
No, I'm kidding. My immediate response to any like compliment of my appearance, I'm like, "Crazy. They're crazy."
Oh
But
my gosh.
but no, like I've had some mothers offer up their sons to me. Like they're like, my son's 29 years old, a paramedic. Like you should marry him. And I'm like, what's his name? Or they're like, do you know Chad? I'm like, he lives in Toronto as well. Like, did you date Chad? I'm like, the one Chad in Toronto.
He's my
I
neighbor.
definitely know. Yeah, like he's just outside the door. Um, but like, no, it's an interesting. I don't know what I would do if someone was to be like, we should go on a date. I did go on a date with somebody, like it was a blind date, and the person I showed up and the person was like, I watched you on TikTok and I think you're funnier there. I was like,
Okay.
and I literally remember sitting there being like, I don't even know how to respond to that.
How did you respond to that?
I think I did my like my normal like, oh, okay. I have this like weird thing my sister says I do. Actually, all my friends say it. It's like this like guttural laugh that like comes out that I can't recreate unless it's in the moment, where I'm just like, "Hmm." I can't even do it, but it's like this kind of like very polite. Oh, that's weird.
That so this
Because I
date.
don't know how to respond to that. Like you can't respond to these things. But I
No.
also love it. Like people think I take offense to it. I don't. Like those stories like fill me up because they're so, I find like the, I don't know, the spontaneity of people and just like people speaking with no filter. I find it endlessly amusing because
Yeah.
you get caught in these situations, and I think if you're gonna feel offended by things, there's certain instances you should feel offended, but I think in those like they didn't think didn't think the thing through. I hold on to those forever. And if people tell me those stories, I remember them for always. They're never gonna go away.
Well, yeah, they're gonna be in your book.
Yeah,
They're gonna be in your book.
It's gonna be Chris from that date thinking that I'm funnier on TikTok. And he said it with his full chat. Like he honestly like just like puffed his, you're funny. Well, I think you're funnier there. I was like,
You're like,
oh,
okay. Oh, I can go home and you can watch me on TikTok
I was
and I
like,
don't need to be here.
literally, it was like, would you like to FaceTime me from across the table, sir? Like, I can tell you it will be no different.
Oh my
I'll just
gosh.
put you down. And it was like he didn't even have the politeness to wait for the wine to get to the table first.
Oh
Like I
my
ordered it,
gosh.
and then I was like, "Oh, I can't even drink something. I have to just wait." And I'm like, "Where is our server? Is she coming back?"
Oh, so clearly you went out on a second date.
We're married.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Plot twist.
Plot twist: we're married and have 2 adopted children. I also am giving my life up. He has a Christmas tree farm. It's not a red flag.
Oh my gosh. Stu, okay. I always ask my guests this one question before I let you go. What is one thing that the listeners can do, one activity, 10 minutes or less, to help them be more creative? Tap into their creativity.
Honestly, I think writing funny things down that happened to you during the day. Put them in your notes on your phone. Uh, like also be observant of people around you. I think people tend to walk around in a tunnel, and a lot of the stories that come from me are from like the world around, like happening to me because I'm literally like looking around all the time. If I'm in a restaurant talking to you, I'm also listening to the table conversation behind me. So it's like just like put your head up, look around, and then write funny things down and share them with your friends. And if you get a good reaction, you'll learn. You'll learn how to tell the story a little bit differently. Be aware of that. I think it's fun. It's a nice little exercise you can do by yourself. Share with
I
your
love
family,
that.
share with your husband, share with your wife, share with your spouse, partner, college roommate, dog.
I love people on TikTok. I
Yeah.
love that. Although if we go out to dinner, I'm gonna need like full attention.
Oh, but I will also bring you into the conversation we're having.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Like I'm the kind of person who's like, oh my God, I think they're breaking up. And you're like, what? I'm talking about my life. And I'm like, I hear every word you're saying, but also
But also,
they're
there's
breaking
some
up.
drama. You know, I'm what I when if I go out to dinner, I'm always looking around thinking,
Yeah.
"Ooh, is that a first date? Or what are they talking about? Or oh my gosh, how long have they been married? Ooh, are they breaking up?" Like I'm
Yeah.
always like, if I'm on a date, I'm like, "All right, guess, are they married? How long have they known each other? Is this a
Exactly.
first date? Like, what date is this for them?"
Yeah. It's just observational humor comes from like watching people watching. It's all you're
Yeah,
doing.
it's
Is
so
like just be
fun.
more aware of the people around you. because
Yeah.
oftentimes you end up welcoming them into your space, sometimes not for the best, but like you end up being like, what? What is happening?
Oh my gosh. Well, Stu, thank you so much. It was so fun to meet you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Oh, good. Well, we'll have to have you come back on after you reach 1 million, so we can help you celebrate with your gluten-free cake.
Oh my God. Also, let me know when your book comes out. I want to read it.
Oh, I will. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. You're
Definitely tell me when it
awesome.
comes out.
I definitely will.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be harassing you to get your book out.
Yeah,
So,
you should be super proud that you like wrote an entire book because
oh my
that's a
gosh.
feat of its own. I want you to tell every single person you meet, I wrote a book. Do they want
I
to what?
plan to just carry them around with
Oh
me
my
and
God, do
like
it. I know, honestly, like if they ask you for a bag at the grocery store, be like, I wrote a book. I would also like a bag, but I wrote a book. Did you write a book? I wrote a book.
oh, you didn't write a book? Oh, I
Oh, do
did.
you want to read my book? Read my book, and then you should write your own book. But then you should give my book to your friends and family to read if they all buy their own books, though. Like you have your book, and then you get them to buy their own books. I'll send you my Amazon link.
Marketing tips by Stu.
Yeah, just like tell everyone.
Oh my gosh, Stu, you are
Yeah, anyway,
awesome. People need to find you on TikTok, and I'm so happy that we are connected.
me too. Thank you for having me.